So our next recipe, as Jeremy's getting ready for it, is the shiitake mushroom soup. Now, this soup is bursting with flavor and has health protective nutrients included as well. So our sense of taste and smell may decline with age. And also, if you're undergoing cancer treatment, sometimes your taste is distorted. You either have strong taste for sweet or salty, or you have no taste at all. So this dish is rich, savory flavors, umami, one of our favorites, one of Jeremy's favorites. The umami flavor in this can wake up the taste buds and also stimulate an appetite that might be waning because the taste isn't there. So this one, I think, is a great one for today with the weather the way it is outside, something nice and warm.
Wonderful. Awesome. Okay, so we went from transforming leftovers into a secondary dish. Now we're going to focus on, this is a great option to create leftovers. So I think soups, batch cooking in general is a great way to, put the work in once and then set yourself up with leftovers and future meals so that when you just don't have, the time or energy to cook, you have something ready to go. So that's why I love doing these one pot batch cooking meals, and soups are a great way to do that. Okay, so to start off, this is an optional step. We're going to, for the stock for our soup, again, looking for convenience. With us, we're on the convenience train, so using just like a regular store-bought box stock, go for it. Don't let that be a barrier, for you to do some scratch cooking. And they have like no sodium veggie stocks and chicken stocks available now, so some great options you can choose. So definitely go in that direction. For this, I want to show you how to make a very simple, very quick mushroom stock. Because we're making a shiitake mushroom soup, I thought that mushroom stock would actually be a really nice pairing for it. And at its simplest, it's 2 ingredients. This is something that I will usually always have on hand in the pantry. Just some dried mushrooms. Now you can find, there's all different types of dried mushrooms. Dried shiitake mushrooms are pretty easy to find. You can find dried porcini as well. They're a little bit pricier, but for usually like a package of dried shiitake, you can go to grocery stores that'll have them for like maybe $3, $4 for a nice package, and then you can use a little bit here and there. So I like to keep a little bit on hand, and so to make a really nice, easy mushroom broth, what I'll do, and you can do this directly in the pot, but I just for the visualization of it, we're gonna throw it into this jar. So I'm gonna put, now in my recipe, I'm calling for about 6 to 8 shiitake mushroom caps. I had mixed dried mushrooms, so I'm going for about half a cup of dried mushrooms collected there, and I'm going to cover those with, again, back to our kettle, making it easy, just some boiling water. This is the slowest pour, I apologize. There we go.
I like how they all float to the top too.
Yeah.
Hopefully no one will think that's a special drink.
Yeah, no. You can, I guess you can make a.
I guess you could drink it. You could, yeah.
So I'm just gonna steep this down, and you can already start to see it, color the liquid. The longer it steeps, the more flavor you're gonna get out of the mushrooms. Now these mushrooms, these dried mushrooms, all mushrooms, but especially the dried mushrooms, are going to be high in, I know Daniela mentioned already, umami, my favorite of the 5 senses. And so it's going to give this really nice savoriness, this really nice richness, this great depth of flavor to our dish, with, again, without needing a lot of excess salt and salty condiments. So at its simplest, I'm using the dried mushrooms. You can add garlic to this. You can add thyme, bay leaf to this, ginger if you want. Like there's different things, different aromatics you can add. That's just going to add more flavor. But for me, I'm just making simple hot water and mushroom broth, and we're going to let this sit. Like I said, the longer you let it sit, the more flavor you're going to get. So aim for about 20 minutes as you're preparing the rest of your ingredients for the recipe. You can just let that sit, and then that'll be ready to go. So we're going to move on. So while my mushroom tea, I was going to call mushroom tea, my mushroom broth is steeping, we're going to move on to the soup here. Okay, so see this pot. I'm going to have it over medium heat. And I'm going to add a little bit of oil, about a tablespoon of olive oil. This, you can add any vegetable-based oil, will be fine. And I'm going to add some aromatics to get the soup going. Now, this soup is very minimal in terms of ingredients. I have a couple aromatics, our mushrooms, and some greens, and then our broth. So you can absolutely enhance on it any way you like. For my aromatics, I'm trying to bring you into my cutting board here. I'm going to start off with some garlic. You can absolutely grate this. You can chop it. Trying to blind it out so you can see it here. What I'm going to do is just crush it. And you can use the side of the knife. You can use the bottom of the jar. And just give it just a little tap. That's it. Break it open. I did this in advance to a couple of them. And if you can, while you're prepping everything else, start with this just to get it broken open. It's going to actually help to activate the aroma. It's going to get that started. But it does something else as well, which, Danielle and I love to talk about.
Yes, we love to talk about this. It activates the flavor, but it also activates an antioxidant development. So an enzyme within the garlic, or even with onions, it will develop within 10 minutes. So the idea is, if you're going to add it to heat, before you do that, wait 10 minutes, because it takes 10 minutes for that antioxidant to develop. If you add it to the heat sooner than that, it'll destroy the enzyme that's creating that antioxidant. So it's just a little tip. You don't have to feel bad if you forget to do it, but if you do, you can say, oh, I've just up to the ante on my nutrient intake here. So, yeah.
And hello, Monica. I think there's someone's watching saying hello, hello.
Hi, Monica.
All right, so garlic in our pot, and then I'm going to add some ginger as well. Now, again, easy way to peel the ginger, especially, again, like I said, if you're not that comfortable with your knife or wanting to take it out and have to worry about cleaning it and all that, just use a spoon, and you can just scrape the sides of that sort of woody part on the outside, and you can see it comes off relatively easily, just scraping it just like that. Okay, and with the ginger, I'm leaving it whole as well. I've also just crushed it with the side of my knife, and I'm just going to put that in. You can slice it up if you want to, being relatively rustic about it. What I like is, if you like the taste of ginger, the fresh ginger, slice it up, and you can even add some later if you want. But this way you can sort of let it impart its flavor, and then if you want to remove it, you can remove it afterwards. We have our ginger, we have our garlic in here, working their magic. And then we're going to move on to our mushrooms. So we're using, for this, we're using shiitake mushrooms. It's a shiitake mushroom soup. But you can use any mushrooms that you do like. The one thing you do want to make sure with mushrooms that you do clean them properly. And I know, it might go against some other, popular tips in terms of cleaning mushrooms, saying just use a brush, don't, run them underwater. Especially if you're immune compromised, I think cleaning them as best as possible is the way to go. And what I like to do is I'll soak them into cold water in a bowl, agitate them, sort of mix them around. And then as you take them out, you can give them a nice wipe and make sure that they're really nice and clean. Mushrooms are mostly water anyways, so they're really not going to absorb that much. And it might mean that you have to cook them an extra 20, 30 seconds. Like we're cooking them anyways. It's going to be in a soup. I'm not too worried about that. With the shiitake mushrooms, the one thing you want to make sure as well is that the stems, you're going to take them off. These are really woody, not great for eating. You can use, if you want to save them, you can use as make stock with it. Super flavorful. But for shiitakes, all you want is the caps. And again, I'm just tearing it with my hands into pieces. No need for a knife. And I'm going to go ahead and throw this into the pot with our ginger and our garlic, and just want to cook them down for maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes, so that more of the, not all, but most of at least the water inside evaporates, and it's at that point where you're going to start to develop some color and some flavor on the mushrooms. So about 2 to 3 minutes cooking.
Great. So maybe I'll talk a little bit about mushrooms here, Jeremy. Is that good? Yeah. So mushrooms, it is kind of one of my favorite foods. My sister and I, we're polar opposites. She hates mushrooms. I love mushrooms. So what's interesting about mushrooms is it actually is one of the plant foods that actually contains vitamin D. Now, vitamin D, Health Canada suggests that after the age of 51, we actually have to take supplements of vitamin D, about 400 international units per day or more. Now, I'm not advocating and telling you to do that, because if you're listening in, you may have other conditions, you may be under cancer treatment. So just double check that with your medical team. But know that if you're having some mushrooms in the diet, along with some of your dairy products or dairy, non-dairy beverages like soy or almond milk or oat that is fortified with calcium and vitamin D, you're getting the nutrients that are important for keeping your bones strong. And keeping our bones strong can also help reduce our risk of fractures and falls. Something else about mushrooms is it contains a little bit of vitamin B12 as well. So it's probably why it's one of those foods that sometimes is substituted for meats in many other dishes if you're going meatless or having a plant protein diet, plant-based diet.
Wonderful.
I see some greens sneaking into the picture too.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I'm stirring it around, the mushrooms around gently as they cook, so I want them to stick. And we're going to be using some greens for this dish as well. The greens are completely up to you. So if you want something a little more tender, it's a little easier to chew, then I would definitely suggest something like spinach, maybe chard without the stems, anything that's softer, a little more tender. What we're using today, this is a variety of Chinese dark leafy greens. It is called, there might be other names. The name I know is, I think, Yun Choi. It is a member of, I think it's over like the mustard greens family. Really, really nice. At the produce markets, little produce market near my house, they usually have this, and bok choy is another one as well. But I really like these ones because they have a really nice long stem, but the leaves are really nice and tender. So really great option, nice and sweet. What I would do is add the tender leaves, snap them off, and add them right at the end, because they really don't take too much time to cook, and I don't want to overcook them. So I've added those at the end, but the thicker stems, what you can do is, so they're a little bit easier to eat, you would want to soften those up earlier and cook them through. And so I've taken off those larger stems, and you can slice them into round, smaller, or bite-size pieces. And we're going to add this right now so that it does have some time to soften up with the mushrooms. Now, we're using fresh. Again, convenience. I'm going to be using this the buzzword again for today. Absolutely use frozen. We love using frozen. We love talking about incorporating frozen fruits and vegetables into your dishes. Super convenient. Already washed, already chopped. All the heavy lifting is done for you. And then Daniela, in terms of nutrition.
Yeah, in terms of nutrition, your frozen fruits and vegetables pretty well pack the same amount of nutrition for you. And it's just more convenient and easier. And we know, we see it all over the news right now about the rising food costs. And if you're on a fixed income or if you're not working because you're getting cancer treatment, we know that can be really tough. So don't worry about using frozen fruits or vegetables. Don't feel like you're not getting all the nutrients you need, because they do freeze them at peak of freshness and lock in that nutrition.
Wonderful. Okay, so we had our garlic and our ginger to start, threw in our shiitake mushrooms and the stems of this unichoy here, and I'm going to add our broth. So again, this could be a box stock, veg stock, chicken stock that you already have ready to go. Make it easy for yourself. Even if it's just water, I mean, add water and then just, add this, it's going to have flavor already, and then you can just season to taste if you need to with that. But if you made your own little mushroom broth, mushroom tea here, you can see. Now, if I wasn't doing a live show at home, and so hopefully you're not doing a live show, teaching a live show when you're cooking at home, let this steam, an extra 10, 15 minutes. I'm going to use it now. And it's still going to have a lot of flavor. It would just have more if I let it steep a little bit longer. But you can already tell from the color, it is already going to be super, super flavorful. And so I'm going to try to hold the mushrooms in, just pour it. That really, really tasty umami-rich broth into the soup. These dried mushrooms will be soft now because we've soaked them in the boiling water. You can roughly chop those up and you can throw them in as well. The very bottom of the your broth or your jar that you're steeping your mushrooms in might have a little bit of grit, a little bit of like sandy grit from the dried mushrooms. So I always leave just a little bit because it'll fall to the bottom. They don't pour that part in because it'll just be a little gritty. So you can just leave that. But otherwise, we're ready to finish this dish. And it's a very quick dish. You're cooking it really until those stems are nice and tender. So it might take another minute or so at this point. And then this is when I would add those tender tops of the greens. And it's almost like a spinach, these greens at this point. So I'm just gonna, any of the big ones I'll tear in, some of the smaller ones I'll just add as is. And then I'll stir this through. And then you can season to taste. Now, I haven't added any salt to this at this point. This is when, again, you can add, if you want to add a little pinch of salt, or if you want to use, I think that it pairs really well with this. I have a low sodium soy sauce, which I'm going to be using in this, and we're just using a little bit, probably about a tablespoon. Stir that through. And that is going to complement the mushrooms really well, because that soy sauce also has a very strong, say it with me, umami taste. Thanks. Like a little more enthusiasm there. Please. Yeah, and we're stirring that through, and you have this really, really nice soup ready to plate.
Jeremy, you use the stems as well. And what's great about using the stems is that it contains inulin, which is a type of fiber, which is also something called a prebiotic. And that also is something that feeds the healthy bacteria in our gut, the friendly bacteria in our gut. And by doing that, it helps to flourish, and it supports our immune system, it supports our brain health. So that's cool that we are not wasting the stems. we're incorporating it into the dish. And on top of that, we're getting another type of fiber that's good for our gut system.
Wonderful. So there's our soup ready to go. So again, start to finish, maybe 15 minutes tops. If you let the mushrooms steep a little bit longer, maybe 20 minutes, but otherwise it's a pretty quick soup to make. The recipe that we'll be posting, it covers about 4 servings. But again, if you're going to be making the recipe, there's you like it, there's no reason you can't double up that recipe, make a larger batch of it, and it freezes really well. Okay, so we're ready to plate this. Now again, this is delicious as is. We're going to, I know Danielle talked about trying to include proteins, more proteins in your meals and snacks. So for this one, we're actually using a plant-based protein, one of our favorites, some tofu. And this is just some soft tofu, a cube of it that I put in the bottom of my bowl here. And then I'm going to just simply pour some of that soup around it. So really nothing more that you have to do to the tofu. But pour that broth, we'll get some more of those mushrooms and those greens in here.
And that umami flavor will probably just kind of seep into the tofu as well.
Oh, absolutely. And that's pretty much it. If you want to finish it with like some fresh green onion or scallion on top, you can absolutely do that. But I think this is ready to go. Smells incredible. And you just have that really nice soft tofu in there that you can spoon up with your broth. So yeah, there we go. Really nice.
Excellent.